Hey guys, Tyrup here, and today we're taking a look at the Summer 2021 Balance Patch Beta. Always bold to call it something like the season summer, since we're coming towards the tail end of that now, and people will be complaining if it gets delayed. Which season? They didn't say if it was Northern or Southern Hemisphere summer. Nice one, guys. So if you want to play the beta, these are the instructions here. You go to the Properties, Betas tab, and select Community 3. And then your game will patch. Starting off with the general changes, sandbags are having an increase in their target size to make them easier to hit when directly attacked by things such as anti-tank guns. Target size going up from 1, which is the same size as infantry, to 20, which is the same size as a medium tank. So big change here. Sandbags are going to be way easier to kill when you're trying to attack them down. I know that some people have been calling for the removal of sandbags from main lines altogether, but for me, it's tough because we never really know which patch is going to be the last, and a change like that would require like a complete overhaul of the early game of different factions, honestly. So it's a rock and a hard place with sandbags, but here we go. At least we'll be able to kill them a lot more easily now with this change. Medium mobile mortars will now have 20 extra range on their smoke at Vet 2, so they'll be a little bit better. You won't have to reposition them to get that smoke off all the time. Machine gun formations are being reworked. The Ford 2 models are being moved back slightly to being almost in line with the MG Gunner when deployed out in the open. This change will reduce some of the extra sight from those Ford models being slightly further forwards, as well as since they'll be further back, now the machine gun will be more tightly clustered together, be more vulnerable to explosives such as grenades, mortars, tanks, and so on. Machine guns have been very strong at the moment in the meta, often seeing players go for like 2 or 3 even sometimes. So this is one change to help reduce that. Here we are in the live version as a bit of a refresher to see the issue with the formation on the machine gun. And we can see 2 models are standing quite far ahead, maybe like 2 to 3 range ahead of the gunner. So that gives them an extra bit of sight down here, making the machine gun a bit harder to avoid as an opponent. On top of that, they are very well spaced apart. You can see very, very far away. So if you, for instance, throw a grenade right on top of the gunner to try and get the decrew, because they're spaced out, these models on the edges are not going to take very much damage at all. Here's a look at the Soviet formation as well. So as you can see here, very, very well spaced out. Still in the live version, we're going to see how much a grenade does if I throw it right into the center, right on top of the gunner, how much the surrounding models take in terms of health damage. We've got the health table up here. So let's see what we get. So the gunner in the center goes down, but all the surrounding models take just 20 damage. And now the same thing, but for the Maxim. Once again, everything just taking 20 damage on the edges, the gunner dying. So now we're in the beta version, taking a look at the MG crew models, and they are much further back now, whereas previously they were maybe like 2 to 3 range forwards. Now it's like 1-ish range forwards. Much further back, so less sight forwards. Also, they do seem to be a bit closer to the machine gun. I don't know if I could superimpose or do some movie magic, but looks like you will be able to get some better AoE damage going. And here is the Maxim, same story here, much less further forwards with those 2 frontal gunner models being quite close to the gunner, so maybe you can get some extra AoE damage going. And now we're going to test the rifleman grenade thrown on top of the machine gun. You can see straight away that these 2 models are now like pretty firmly inside the circle, whereas before they're kind of like the model at the back, just like right on the edge. See if that makes a difference, especially this one seems to be a bit closer. Maybe that'll vary from placement to placement. So yeah, now you can see one model of the crew, the one that was close over here, actually took a significant amount more damage. Instead of just the regular 20, they took an extra 40 or so damage. Try this out on the Maxim next. Now the grenade on top of the Maxim. And yeah, this time, again, quite a few models taking more than the 20 damage that we saw last time. In fact, 3 models somehow took extra damage. So yeah, it will definitely make the machine guns more vulnerable to explosives like this. Snipers are having the following change tested to reduce their mobility to weaken their ability to soft retreat from fights when they are rushed by infantry squads. So they now take a 25% movement speed penalty upon firing for 5 seconds. This penalty does not stack on itself, and I believe it does not persist into retreat. So if you take a shot, Then for 5 seconds, your sniper will move 25% more slowly after that. So infantry squads will be able to push in and knock them out pretty quickly, honestly. This is a big nerf to snipers. So testing the new sniper debuff, I'm going to snipe a squad, then run both of these guys forwards so we can see exactly how far they get apart in terms of range as they are running. So here we go.
Firing on enemy infantry. I'll get there.
So the time the debuff wears off looks close to 5 range, maybe a touch under 5 range. So that will allow a squad to like close in on you if you're sniping from 35 range by a decent chunk. Make it much harder for your sniper to get away. So that is a big nerf. 5 seconds, that debuff. Reasonable. Like, look how slow you are. Getting away from light vehicles after that will be a nightmare. We'll test it into retreat. Yeah, it doesn't look like it persists into retreat. It's not supposed to. Oh, but once you finish retreating, then you experience the slowness. Ooh. Okay, well. Big nerf to snipers there. And ultralight vehicles such as the WC-51, M3A1 now have access to the force reload ability similar to other vehicles got in the previous patch. Moving on to the British, and the Bofors anti-air emplacement is having its pop cap reduced from 8 to 6. It did receive quite a lot of changes maybe around 2 years ago, which overall I felt like were nerfs. Now maybe it's not really worth its pop cap cost of 8, so it's coming down to 6. Also you have to consider Brits have quite a lot of trouble with anti-air. Yeah, they've got the Centaur, but that's very expensive compared to anti-air half-tracks from most other factions. They don't really get Pintos on all their tanks. They don't have a base that they naturally build to shoot down planes anyway. So maybe this change will help Brits a bit more using the Bofors as an anti-air tool. The British are also getting a lot of their side tech options reduced to manpower costs. So AEC and Bofors are both getting a 25 manpower cost reduction. Bolster also getting a 25 manpower cost reduction. And weapon racks are going down by 50 manpower. So quite a lot of changes to the side tech. Personally, when it comes to tech costs, I feel like it's actually like hammer or anvil that are more the issue, being so expensive. 200 manpower, 50 fuel. I feel like they're bad value compared to Osttruppen tier 4. It's like 3 tanks versus 1. Sure, you get some nice abilities, you know, with the hammer tracking, the emergency war speed, but they also get the reduction in reinforcement costs. So that's personally where I would like to have seen some reductions instead, especially maybe compared to Bolster, which is, you know, quite a strong ability, really. The British Assault Officer, introduced a few patches ago, but doesn't really see too much play, honestly. So it's getting quite a few changes. Manpower cost reduced from 320 to 280. Has access to the Coordinator Barrage. Unlike the infantry variant, this drops standard red warning flares at the target position, like most off maps, rather than those weird kind of smoke ones that the British pyrotechnics sections throw in the sniper. 45 range. Shares a cooldown with all 25 pounder abilities. We have to see how that one goes. Now has access to off-map smoke barrage used by infantry sections upgraded with pyrotechnics. See changes below. Can be upgraded with a single Vickers K machine gun. Requires weapon racks to be upgraded. 60 munitions. So quite a lot of changes here to the officer, kind of bringing it more in line with other officers that received changes in the previous patch in terms of all the utility you're going to get with it now. So this is a pretty big buff overall. Alright, taking a look at the revised Assault Officer, now has access to the Coordinated Fire ability. You can see the edge of the range there, 45 range. That is really far. Take a look at the Pyrotechnics Tommies, for instance. Maybe 25 range, so a lot shorter overall. So that's a very long range. We'll activate. Can't even see it. Okay, here it goes. Smoke down. Regular looking. And the base howitzers firing. I've only got one upgrade at the moment. Don't have the company command unlocked. Just platoon command. So yeah, very long range on that. You know, if there's like an MG in a building or something, you could even just like sneak up on it and activate. Doesn't look like you need sight, right? Doesn't look like you need sight. No, you don't need sight. So even from behind a building, you just drop some artillery very quickly like that. So that that could be quite annoying to fight against, honestly. Interesting. Take a look at the smoke flare now, 25 munitions. Okay, so reasonable delay before the smoke comes in. That's a lot of smoke though, actually. Quite a lot of smoke, and that one had quite a long cast range as well. It looked like maybe 40-ish range. So yeah, smoke with longer than sight range, but not as long as the artillery strike coordinated barrage from the howitzer. So having a look at the officer smoke compared to the pyrotechnics Tommy smoke, you can see they're in different hotkey positions, which could be quite annoying. Officers on S, that range. Okay, so it looks like the same range on both of their smokes. On this one now, I believe that these are the same ability. Look to be the same. So yeah, that's a look at the new smoke. It goes on cooldown for both of these squads. It's a global cooldown for that smoke, so you can't just spam it like crazy. 25 munitions. But yeah, when it comes to hotkey positioning, smoke currently occupying this bottom corner, which is typically where the vet ability goes at V. See the sniper, for instance, with the critical shot down here at V. So maybe this could go to the same position as the officer, so it's a little bit less confusing in terms of hotkey positions, or maybe even the officer one could come up to here, so you kind of got them in a nice column or something. Not sure, but either way, I feel like having them in vastly different positions is going to be quite annoying. The Churchill AVRE has been tweaked to reduce the chance of the projectile undershooting, so similar to the Sturmtiger in the previous patches. The AVRE had a chance to undershoot, so it's getting similar changes, where the projectile speed is going down, but the ready aim time is getting reduced slightly. So the projectile is going to travel a little bit more slowly, but it will fire a little bit more quickly, which potentially could be dangerous. We'll have to check the numbers. So we're in the patch version, testing the revised projectile on the AVRE now. I'm going to fire this pretty much at max range, see how long it takes, compare it to the live version. Okay, so you can definitely notice the projectile does travel quite a lot more slowly, just visually. You can see it quite obviously. Testing the AVRE in the live version long range. During the live test, I think I saw a bit of extra turret rotation that might have slowed it down a touch, so I'm going to redo it. Here we are on day 2. Still maybe a tiny bit of turret rotation. Seems hard to be exact on that, so I tried. And then patch version at close range, time comparison. And then the AVRE in the live version close range. Looks like it undershot there. Maybe that's what was hoping to get fixed. Live version take 2. So here are the results side by side, and the patch does slow down the long range shot of the AVRE by around 0.13 of a second, but then at close range it speeds it up by roughly 1/4 of a second. I think the curious thing to note here is that in the live version, the long range shot actually comes out faster than the close range shot, which probably shouldn't be the case. But in looking at the video, it seemed like the AVRE took a long time to angle its turret downwards for those close range shots, which seemed to add to the delay. So here I am, I've got a Raketin, the AVRE's coming in. Let's see if I can react to this in time. No.
The enemy has destroyed an anti-tank gun.
Alright, so round 2 on this test. Can hear it coming if I move my monitor over there. So yeah, if you're really observant, you might be able to hear it coming, but kind of reacting to it appearing from the fog, like in a realistic scenario, I feel like the projectile, this is in the patch version as well, still arrives too fast to realistically dodge away with the Raketin. So yeah, you need like extra sight or to like hear it coming, to know it's coming basically, to realistically dodge away with this with your Raketin, in my opinion. So I feel like it's still too fast, honestly. So now I've got the Raketin pre-selected. I hear that coming. Dodge. So yeah, I can just dodge it in that scenario. If I've already got the Raketin selected and I can hear it coming, I can narrowly avoid getting away the 2 models at the very far back edge of the Raketen are far enough away to survive. But I imagine maybe if I'm clumped up in cover, that the Raketen's all clumped up, you might not have that ability. So yeah, I know that this isn't really what we came here to to test, but I don't like the AVRE. I know a lot of people think it's quite weak, but I personally, even in the live version, think it's too strong, and yeah, it's very, very hard to dodge reactively in basically any scenario. And even this is in the patch version as well, with it being like 0.12 of a second slow or something like that. So yeah, okay. The Churchill Mark 7 infantry tank, this is the one you get from Anvil. Population cost is getting reduced from 19 to 18. There are a small suite of changes to reduce the pop cap limit of Brits. In the late game, they were having some pop cap issues, getting close to 100, found themselves in a bit of a bind, so a slight reduction to the Churchill. The forward observation post, this is the one in the tactical support commander. The recon air support ability no longer requires hammer or anvil, and the artillery cover and strafing air support now only require company command post rather than hammer or anvil. So yeah, if you want to stay at company command, not have to tick that extra stage to hammer or anvil, maybe you just want to spam medium tanks like the Cromwell, you will now have access to those late game abilities. You don't have to go for the extra stage of tech to unlock those commander abilities. Infantry sections are having their reinforcement times reduced to match other infantry. Pyrotechnics have also been improved to provide the British with another mobile detector unit, while the smoke barrage has been reworked to make it easier to use and to allow for more aggressive play against static positions. The reinforcement time is coming down from 7 to 6.2. As a comparison, Grenadiers are 6, so still slower to reinforce than Grenadiers. Riflemen are 5.6. So yeah, they still reinforce more slowly than basically every other mainline infantry squad in the game, but not by such a large margin anymore. Smoke barrage has been reworked into an off-map smoke barrage with 45 range, same range as a machine gun. Shares a cooldown with other infantry sections and officers, 25 munitions. And the stealth detection range increased from 10 to 25 when upgraded with pyrotechnics. Might help you, find those Raketens, hunt down those snipers, so on and so forth. Here we are in the patch version, and we're going to have a reinforcement cost race sections. They are with bolsters, so they can go up to 5 models against everybody else. Who's going to reinforce the fastest? There we go, Grenadiers first. Folks, conscripts, riflemen, and then sections still last. So yeah, pretty big buff to the infantry sections reinforced time, but still the slowest of them all. So now an all British reinforcement race, this time with the assault section and the tank counter section. In the notes, I didn't mention anything about either of these two changing, so we'll see which reinforces first. Yeah, so straight away you can notice the regular sections are reinforcing quite a lot faster than the assault and the tank hunter section. So maybe that's kind of like a good demonstration of the before and after of this change. The old sections with the old reinforcement cost time, maybe a few seconds slower overall, reinforcing from one model. Royal Engineers are having their Vet 1 ability adjusted. They have a big cooldown and reload bonus, which is only functional in cover, but now that requirement is being removed. Now you can get that bonus just from being stationary instead of being in cover, which I think overall is for the better, because I have played quite a lot of these strategies with a lot of Royal Engineers, and I found that oftentimes you maybe get to use that bonus once throughout the course of an entire match, and that was going for Royal Engineers right at the start of the game as well. Very hard for that bonus to apply. It is a very strong bonus though, worth noting. Here's the DPS curve of it. You can see it is a pretty major boost. I think it's around the range of 40% DPS boost. But yeah, only applies when it's stationary, so you don't have to worry about like running and gunning, chasing you down on retreats or anything like that. Only when stationary, so might be okay, might need a slight toning down, but I think this change overall is for the better in a big way. So as a demonstration of the strength of the Royal Engineers Vet 1 bonus, we're going to have Royal Engineers at Vet 0 versus Vet 1 at point blank range. They don't have to be in cover. As you can see here, the cover shield is not active. It hasn't changed, denoting that they have a cover bonus anymore. So, how sections, in fact, maybe I can bring one in here. So sections, see how they have the sword through their shield. Well, engineer sappers don't have that, so denoting that they don't have the cover bonus. So here we go. So yeah, comprehensive victory all round, generally with 2 models remaining. Worth noting though that Royal Engineers don't get any combat bonuses at Vet 2, whereas all other engineers do. So this is kind of their only combat bonus until they hit Vet 3 when they get their received accuracy. So this kind of has to tide them over. They have 0 combat bonuses at Vet 2. They only get improvements to their repair rate and construction time. So yeah, no combat bonuses, so this kind of has to tide them over for 2 whole stars of veterancy, but it is quite a strong bonus. Sherman Firefly, population cost is going down from 16 to 15, helping the Brits with their late game pop cap woes. The Universal Carrier Vickers K weapon now has a 25% accuracy bonus against snipers. I believe the Bren already had an accuracy bonus against snipers, so now that's also getting applied to the Vickers K, so this thing will be lethal against snipers. Okay, with the buff to the Vickers K, I want to see how quickly a Universal Carrier can kill a sniper, so I've got them lined up close to max range. Let's see how quickly they go down here. Very, very, very fast is the answer. Blink and you'll miss them. The Vickers Heavy Machine Gun is getting a population cost increase from 6 to 7. Other heavy machine guns are receiving the same change. So overall, quite a lot of buffs to the Brits. They have been underperforming for quite a long time now. So hopefully this will bring them up to the same level as the other factions. OKW Assault Artillery, this is the one in Breakthrough. Cost is getting increased by 25 munitions, maybe a bit too good performance relative to its cost. MG34, similar to other heavy machine guns, going up in population cost by 1. Sturm Pioneers are getting a slight Vet 2 received accuracy bonus, going from 23 to 29%. And then the UI change with the sweeper shield is getting reverted. Good change here, might stop Sturm Pioneers from dropping off so sharply in the mid to late game. And finally, the Sturmtiger, which has been extremely popular since its projectile got fixed, dominating team games especially. The range on the rocket is getting reduced by 5, so now you should be able to see it coming and won't be able to fire it from the fog of war. Command point cost is going up from 8 to 10, so this should give you more time to field a dedicated answer to it, such as a tank destroyer, rather than just relying on maybe like a medium and an anti-tank gun. You have more time to field an answer to the Sturmtiger, and can no longer use crew repair while reloading. Probably should have been the case all along, but it's good that that's getting fixed now, and so damage that you put onto the Sturmtiger will matter a lot more. Alright, similar test that we did for the AVRE. Pre-selected. Can't get away. Pre-selected, pre-even reverse input. Alright, let's try something a little bit faster. 50 cal, let's see if that can dodge away in time. Pre-selected again. Okay, just 50 cal can get away now with this change. So yeah, it's got a faster pack up time than the anti-tank gun. The anti-tank gun, takes a shot. Seems to have maybe like a slight bit of a cooldown or something after the shot before it starts to pack up. So it makes it slower to dodge away. But I think the 50 cal does also have a pretty good teardown time. We'll have a look at that. Pretty quick to move. So alright, we'll run one more test for fairness. This time we've got the M1. You can hear the Sturmtiger coming. So the M1 that time didn't shoot. I managed to dodge away before the shot came off, and that gets away on a very, very low amount of health. Given a tiny bit of small arms damage will probably get the decrew here, but it is possible to dodge away from once it appears in the fog of war. Hard, but possible. Now let's see the time on the Sturmtiger firing max range. It's kind of nice to have the AVRE changing in the same patch, so now I've got the exact same timings between the two. We can compare them quite evenly.
Launching.
And then the Sturmtiger at close range. This isn't changing this patch, but just for comparison with the AVRE.
Fire main gun.
So now if we compare the Sturmtiger to the AVRE that we tested earlier, the AVRE fires half a second faster at close range and 3/4 of a second faster long range, so a lot better in both cases. And this is the patched AVRE as well, which fires a little bit slower in long range than it does in the live version. So I've seen quite a few snide comments about these nerfs to the Sturmtiger not being enough, which is, maybe understandable. Players have played against it now and they really hate facing it, so they really want it nerfed into the ground. But we've already seen that the AVRE performs a lot better in terms of actually firing its projectile. AVRE also, has a turret. It's harder to see when it's firing. The Sturmtiger raises its barrel, so it's pretty obvious to see when it's about to fire. AVRE doesn't really have that kind of tell quite so much. And then if we look at AT damage distance, the AVRE actually has a better AT damage distance than the Sturmtiger. So it's actually better at wiping full health squads of infantry or team weapons than the AVRE is. The AVRE's got, other things, other disadvantages. It doesn't have as big like fire AoE. Sturmtiger's like better at stunning tanks. They trade blows in other stats areas as well. Sturmtiger with more health but less armor. AVRE more armor, less health. AVRE slower top speed, but way faster acceleration. AVRE, you can also get the war speed on it, so they trade a lot of blows in other areas. We'll call those roughly a wash, but yeah, if you are still complaining about the Sturmtiger's performance in the patch version, you probably should have been complaining about the AVRE all along. There, and we have the Jaeger Infantry Commander. The following changes being tested to reduce the strength of Jaeger Infantry, which has strong abilities at all stages of the game that can fit into most standard game plans. So the Stuka Close Air Support Anti-Tank Loiter is being replaced, and it's going to be the Strafe instead. Pretty big nerf. The Loiter very easy to use and very, very strong as well. So big nerf, but Jaeger Infantry did seem to be like head and shoulders above just about every other commander in the game at the moment after the last several adjustments. I suppose, you could go Osttruppen for 1v1, but even then, Jaeger Infantry is still a powerhouse in 1v1 all the way up to 4v4. Very strong with no real holes, as it said. You got the strong early game between the ambush camo, sprinting on your grenadiers into the Faust, a very strong option. G43s, freshly buffed. Jaeger Command Squad, also a powerhouse. And then into the ultra strong late game of the AT Loiter, countering tanks. Light artillery barrage, countering team weapons. It just really had no holes. That's what made it so strong. So pretty big nerf, but at the same time, Jaeger Infantry definitely too strong. Alright, now that this anti-tank strafe is getting added to Jaeger Infantry, it's been removed from Jaeger Armor recently as well. I think it's a good time to evaluate its performance and maybe compare it to the IL-2 rocket run from Soviet Airborne. It's a touch cheaper, but here we are in the center of Crossroads. I'm going to test it against this T-34. See how it does, and then we're going to compare the rocket run on a Panzer IV, see what they do in terms of timing, how long they take to come in, how much damage they do, and go from there.
Stuka AT support patrolling the area.
So very close to a kill on a T-34 that doesn't dodge away at all. Pretty good amount of damage. And now the Soviet rocket run against the Panzer IV. So this one got the kill. So the Soviet rockets ended up being about half a second faster than the Stuka anti-tank strafe. I know that the Soviet rockets don't have a guaranteed chance to pen though against heavy tanks, so I want to see the performance of these two against heavy tanks. So we're going to have the Stuka anti-tank strafe against the IS-2. We'll see how much health damage it will do frontally.
Stuka AT support patrolling
And then
the
compare
area.
that to the rockets against the Tiger. Oof, that was a lot of damage. 640 almost exactly, so that would have been enough to kill a medium tank. Perhaps the medium tank's a little bit too small to get hit by that many shots, or maybe I targeted it slightly differently this time. But that is a lot of damage against heavy tank. And now the Soviet rockets against the Tiger. Hmm. 340. So around half the amount. So it's interesting. So this one's like slower, cheaper, worse against medium tanks, but appears to be a lot better against heavy tanks. There's the rocket run, a bit more expensive, faster, probably easier to land, but seems a little bit inconsistent, especially against the frontal armor of heavy tanks. Interesting. I want to try out the rocket run just in case, because it does seem like the rockets were slightly off target. We'll try it again. Slightly different targeting. A little bit more there. A touch under 500. So maybe like 450 damage, but yeah, still quite a lot less than the Stuka anti-tank strafe. MG42 popcat cost is being increased by 1, same as the other heavy machine guns. Osttruppen, these have been terrorizing 1v1 lately. The initial nerf to Osttruppen was meant to weaken their early game strength against the more expensive main lines of factions such as US forces and the Brits. However, Osttruppen was still too cost effective in their ability to trade and even win engagements. The early power has been further reduced and the LMG upgrade price has been increased to better reflect its performance. So the cover bonus is getting reduced from 250 to 200. In the previous patch, Vet 1 will give them, they'll go from 250 up to 300. So now that's outright removed. So it's going to be 200% at all stages of the game. And then the MG42 cost is going up by 45 munitions. So this will make Osttruppen significantly worse in the early stages of the game. So now we're going to test out the revised Osttruppen with their reduced cover bonus, close and long range against the other main lines, see how they go. So in a close range engagement against Tommies is very close to a 50-50. There's times that the infantry sections won is when they just didn't drop any models, you know, as they tend to do. Whereas in engagements where they did drop models, it seems like the Osttruppen would win or at least get very close to it. So it seems to be roughly a 50-50 matchup in close range. Kind of depends on the model drops. The Brits get very lucky in that department. Now the same engagement long range.
Casualties.
Alright, now let's take a look at the results of that. That was a slow one. Tommy's winning across the board, typically with about a quarter of their health, maybe a touch more remaining. So yeah, it looks like 50-50 for Osttruppen up close. Definitely gonna lose long range. Alright, now conscripts versus Osttruppen close range. Close.
Infantry squad has been killed.
But no cigar over there. So right across the board, conscripts winning by a reasonable chunk as well in some of these engagements. So yeah, Osttruppen losing to conscripts up close. And now conscripts versus Osttruppen long range. Alright, well, so having a look around, you can see from the health cards, it looks like Osttruppen are favoured a moderate amount. It looks like conscripts could potentially win. Kind of comes down to model drops, but yeah, it looks like Osttruppen mildly favoured against conscripts long range. And now riflemen versus Osttruppen close range. So that's complete domination for the riflemen across the board, generally with over half their health remaining. And now Osttruppen versus riflemen long range.
Infantry is dying.
And then in these long range fights, it looks like riflemen have a very slight edge. It's kind of interesting to note as well that Osttruppen, if they do drop enough rifleman models, do hit Vet 1 during the course of a fight like this. So it's kind of interesting because, you know, that was previously when they would gain that extra 50% cover bonus back in, but now that's outright gone. So their scaling is also going to be quite a lot worse on top of their start of game being quite a lot worse. So yeah, I think I can notice a bit of a difference in especially maybe like the British matchup. Interesting. For Soviets, a change to the B4, its recharge time is being increased from 70 to 100. That's a pretty big nerf, close to a 50% increase in its recharge time. It does tend to hit Vet 2 pretty quickly, so then it gets a 25% recharge time reduction, but still that's a pretty big nerf to the B4. And the suppression radius on that is being decreased as well by a good chunk from 14 to 10. So some pretty big nerfs to the B4. Was really popular, I think, for like the first 2 weeks or so of the patch, but has seen a massive decrease in play since then, whereas, you know, like Sturmtiger is still very, very popular to this day. Testing the reworked suppression on the B4 barrage, going to fire into this group of pyros, see what happens in terms of suppression. So the squad down here, squad here, this one here, didn't get suppressed from that shot. I think that's a reasonable area, honestly. Yeah, I think I'm reasonably content with the suppression on that now. And the Dishka and the Maxim both getting a population cost increase by 1. US Forces Major. The following change was done to give the USF late game a unit that was capable of spotting once the Major had gained veterancy. This will give the faction a core tool to spot forward defenses before allowing the US player to plan their attack. Previously, if a player did not have either an M20 or a commander with Pathfinders, faction had minimal spotting tools, and that made aggression difficult in late game scenarios, particularly against entrenched enemies. So Vet 1 now gives plus 15 sight in addition to other bonuses. The Major does have a recon pass, and that can be kind of good for spotting where team weapons are and stuff like that. But when you want like consistent sight, maybe over something like a King Tiger, very hard to achieve without Pathfinders really. It's at Vet 1, so you don't get it immediately. It does give you a reason to try to keep your Major alive a bit more than usual. And yeah, this will be quite helpful for spotting units. We'll see how it goes. 15 sight, it's quite a lot, but I think it's similar to what the Sturm officer has for OKW, for instance. And the 76mm Sherman is having its machine gun standardized to be the same as regular Shermans, which increases its max range DPS. Moving on to the bug fixes, and because they almost always say fix an issue at the start, just imagine that I'm saying that. British mortar pit smoke rounds fired slower than other mortars. Concrete bunkers are available in the Pioneer build menu without the appropriate commander selected. Powers and Molotovs were unaffected by suppression. Rapid conscription was not available at 5 command points, probably still at 6. Smoke barrage for the Fort Assembly upgraded with the British Fort Observation Post had less range than its Fort HQ counterpart. Commando spawning from the Commando glider spawned at the side of the map rather than on the glider itself. Hold the line anti-infantry strafe should no longer target casualties. Oh, thank God. British M3 did not get additional sight at Vet 3. SVT conscripts merging into airborne guards and penal battalions would carry invisible weapons. British M5 could still fire when repairing after being upgraded with the quad. IS-2 prioritized vehicle icon was visible in the fog of war. Propaganda artillery revealed an area for a short period of time. Propaganda artillery would launch a shell immediately after the first shell. Delay increased to 3 from 1. Commissar's propaganda artillery had no warning smoke. Mortar emplacement, second mortar hotkey change. Combined arms cost was incorrectly set at 90, back up to 110. Certain artillery weapons, LFH, British base howitzers, M21 delays fuse. Shot troop grenades did more damage to friendlies compared to other weapons, so it's been standardized. Fighting position MG research time from 45 to 20, in line with other machine gun upgrades on bunkers. Fort assembly upgrade hotkey change. Assault section smoke grenade hotkey change. 17 pounder HE, this is from the advanced emplacements, now has a minimum range of 7 to prevent the weapon from being able to fire on top of itself. Command Panther sight bonuses will no longer stack with the IR half-track sight when the spotlight is active. Air resupply operation adjusted to drop the anti-tank gun and mortar first to prevent them from being destroyed by landing on medical crates. Anti-infantry plane of the Hawker Typhoon loiters should no longer target casualties. Nice. The Sturmtiger could still fire even with the main gun destroyed critical. Walking Stuka's reticle for its incendiary barrage would turn white when outside maximum range. And certain units would be able to camouflage for a brief moment after completing a retreating order. That's actually a big deal. Sometimes when like snipers would retreat, just as they completed their retreat, they'll go camo for a second. So if you're base diving with a scout car in a dangerous position, them going camouflage for that second could be life or death really. That's a big and important change. As always, a huge thank you goes out to my Patreon backers, and if you have enjoyed this video, I hope you consider coming on board.